We've got a bit of a plot twist here, Espn, and it's all centered around what Ben Simmons said regarding just a few days ago. Reports made it pretty clear that the Knicks weren't pursuing Simmons really on the verge of joining the New York Knicks. Borderline unrealistic, circling around especially the league since right Simmons reportedly and according to what was just willing to accept a veteran minimum contract, than which is all before we get into the full breakdown. That felt like the end of the story. If you're a Knicks fan today on First Take, would you want Simmons took a surprising turn? Think about that for a moment. And now there's real buzz going on around Brian Windhorst gave an update in New York. That's definitely raising eyebrows. He's reporting that the Knicks are officially in the running as one of the final contenders in the Ben Simmons sweepstakes. Insiders like Steve Popper indicated Windhorst went on to say that Simmons is expected to make a decision within the week, and the financial 4 teams currently in the mix. Simmons is said to be looking for more than the minimum, ideally a deal through a team's exception. And that's something the Knicks simply don't have flexibility for right now. Windhorst laid out a pretty clear scenario. Simmons has to ask himself what he wants out of this next chapter. It even felt like a relief on a title contender. Maybe with limited playing time, does he want to land on a young team where he can rebuild his value with heavy minutes? Adding him to an already deep rotation that's chasing wins right now. If it's the latter, the Knicks are right in that lane. That the situation may be shifting minimum salary. According to league insider Mark Stein, multiple teams at that price, including there's barely any downside. Celtics, Simmons Kings, wouldn't be coming in with the expectation of leading the team keeping tabs or dominating the in free agency. He'd be a role Stein player with some upside. New York, a former as one of the franchises who still has a unique skill set. That's a notable change. You wouldn't want him at $10 million a year. First Take, but at also referenced reporting from Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports on the roster, who reiterated that both Sacramento and New York are still in the mix. Jalen Brunson even grouped Simmons in with other veteran guard targets like Malcolm Anunoby and Russell Anthony Towns, guys who can Isaiah Hartenstein, facilitate Mitchell Robinson, and defend plus Deuce McBride in the rotation. Now, on top of that, they've already made a couple of smart interest moves by adding Jordan Clarkson. If you connect the dots, this new wave of speculation comes not right after the Knicks missed out on Marcus Smart. To round out the bench with a unique had been on the Knicks' radar for a while. Hanging in the air and once his buyout became official, pitching this opportunity New York would be in play. Because based on Windhorst and also confirmed by Mark reportedly for a more defined role and guaranteed Celtics, that move left the Knicks reassessing their options actively trying to land him. That's a smart off the table, but Simmons still has to decide where Simmons he fits. Might be the most accessible name remaining. Simmons hasn't lived up to the expectations of being the number one pick. Becomes critical. He struggled with injury. Take emphasis that the Knicks aren't general availability, major peak. But he did suit up for a 51 games last season. Someone who's ready to contribute. He started the year in Brooklyn, was eventually moved. The idea is to find a veteran with the Clippers handle the across the year. He averaged around 5 points and 5 assists and give them lineup flexibility. He still plays solid where Simmons could enter the conversation again. And even though Simmons doesn't offer much in terms of scoring or shooting, when he still brings value in areas like playmaking, is where rebounding and perimeter starts to make sense. Especially one of the things New York lacked, if he's willing to especially during that deep playoff more importantly against Indiana, a minimum was deal, a true that could make him more appealing to the Knicks. Someone who could handle the ball under pressure, but not everyone agrees with that approach. And get the offense flowing, it was made clear that Simmons still isn't the ideal of those boxes. His offensive get out in transition, combined with questions about his durability, and deliver clean, make him a risky passes, especially if you're trying to strengthen even the back end of Jalen Brunson. If you're building a contender, Simmons' size and versatility could allow Brunson to operate more as a catch-and-shoot threat. So now which we know the ball's in the Knicks' court. In fact, the front office may see Simmons as a low-risk flyer with upside guards in the league if his body since arriving in New York. And the role is Simmons. But for many, 6'10" question remains: defensive IQ, are there better options still out there? Flexibility. We'll see where he can guard multiple positions for sure, and occasionally slide in as a small ball five if needed. Now here's the thing: if we're talking about veteran guards, imagine a lineup with Simmons and Carl Anthony Towns, or even one where Simmons is playing next to a more traditional big Malcolm Mitchell Robinson. Honestly, he adds length, between the two of them. And they different carry injury team that sometimes slows down too much. If you had to choose based on one thing this Knicks squad winning really use is more athleticism is the clear pick. Under he's a guy who knows how to manage a second unit, the tempo, and run an offense, when they have hit timely shots, dangerous. and doesn't become a liability when the pressure rises. So that's where we are.
It's the opposite
Simmons
story.
isn't the player
It's been
he once
years
was
since
projected
he's
to
played
be,
consistent,
but for the veteran
winning
minimum
basketball
on a deep
that's why
Knicks
he's
roster
still
with
unsigned.
minimal
That's
expectation.
why no team
It's
is
an
willing to
intriguing
offer
fit.
him
His
anything
defense
beyond the
vision
veteran minimum.
and size.
It's the same
still
reason he's
bring
now
value.
circling back
and
to
in the
teams
right role.
he reportedly wasn't
surrounded by the
interested
right
in
structure.
earlier in free
Maybe
agency.
New York
like
is
the
the
Knicks,
Knicks,
where he
It's
finally
become
finds
pretty
some
obvious
rhythm
now
again.
that Simmons
and
and
again,
his camp
that
have realized
word
no
from
team is coming
ESPN's
through
Sports
with a
Center
mid-level
today.
exception.
They laid it out
That's
clearly.
just not happening.
Simmons is
So he's
weighing
looking
his
around
options.
again.
And the
Eyeing
Knicks
playoff
are one of the
caliber
top
rosters
destinations
where he
being
can try
considered.
to stay
Continuing
relevant.
the report
and New
from
York
Sports
happens
Center,
to be one of them.
here's
But
the
for
next
Knicks
key
fan,
segment
this
on
is a
Ben
tough
Simmons
pill to swallow
and his potential
because you
fit
know
in
what
New
he
York.
brings.
So,
and more
here's the
importantly,
real question
what he
the
doesn't.
Knicks need to
This is a
answer.
player who
And
shrinks
one Ben
when the moment
Simmons
gets
probably
big.
has to
First
ask
take
himself
was crystal
too,
clear
why
about
does
this
he
today.
want to come
Simmons
to New
doesn't
York?
have the
That
mentality to
clarity
handle a high-pressure
is everything.
environment
We
like
already
New
saw
York.
this
He's not
situation
someone
come
you
up
can
with
trust
Marcus
in
Smart
tight
earlier in the
games.
offseason.
He
The
struggles
Knicks
with
had
confidence,
serious interest
doesn't
in
shoot,
bringing him in
can't hit
on a
free
vet
throws,
minimum deal,
and often
Smart
disappears
reportedly
when his
team
decline.
needs him
And
most.
why?
There
That's
wasn't
just
a
not what
defined
the
role
Knicks
for
need
him
right
on this
now.
team.
We've
There's
seen
a
enough.
possibility
The
he
track
could start
record
in Los
is
Angeles.
what it is.
In New York,
He's not
that
someone who
opportunity
moves
just
the needle
wasn't
toward
there.
winning.
Looking
If
at the Knicks
anything,
depth chart,
his presence
it's not hard to see
complicates
why.
things.
His lack
Starting
of
five
offensive
is set.
threat,
Jalen
limits
Brunson,
spacing,
McCall
he won't
Bridges,
close game,
OG
and you're
Anunoby,
constantly left
Karl
wondering
Anthony
whether he'll
Towns,
even be
and Mitchell
available when you
Robinson,
need him.
or
That's why
Hartenstein,
First Take
depending
brought
on the
up
night.
Malcolm Brogdon
Then
again.
off the bench,
as the
you
much
already
more
have
logical
names
target.
like
He's
Josh
not
Hart,
perfect. His
Deuce
injury
McBride,
history is real.
Gershon
But when
Yabusele,
healthy,
he brings
and Jordan
balance.
Clarkson,
He can defend,
who was a major
he can run the
off-season
second
pickup,
unit.
We're
and he
talking
fits
about
in
a
with
solid
what New York
8
already
to 9
has.
man rotation.
If you're trying to find
already
a steady
locked in.
presence behind
Yabusele
Jalen
just got
Brunson,
$5 million
Brogdon makes sense.
so he's
And
going
if
to see
Brogdon
regular
isn't
minutes.
available,
You've
there
also
are still
got
better
rookie
fallback
forward
options
Max
than
Pomeroy.
Simmons.
Players
Who's
like
expected
Landry
to log
Shamet,
at least
for
a few
example,
minutes per
might
game.
not have the same
Aerial
playmaking
hook-making
chops,
fills the
but
third
they
center
offer
role
consistent
if injuries
shooting.
hit and a
Clarkson
clear identity.
plays the two.
So it really comes down
McBride
to
can
what
play
you
both
value.
guard
If you want
spots.
defensive
Hart flexes
versatility
between
and ball
the 3
handling
and the 4.
Brogdon's
You're
your guy.
finding a niche
If you're
for
looking for
Simmons.
shooting
It's
and
not as
chemistry,
simple as it
someone
sounds.
like Shamet
Could Simmons
gives you that
become the
without the
backup
drama.
point guard?
Bottom line,
That's up for
the
debate.
Knicks have options.
Some have
And Ben
pointed out
Simmons
that McBride
shouldn't be the answer.
despite his
Now,
build,
some fans might be
isn't a
asking,
natural floor
which report
general.
do we trust
He's not
more?
a traditional
The one
point.
that dismissed
So perhaps
Simmons
there's an
to New
opening
York,
if the Knicks
or the
aren't
more
fully
recent
sold on
updates from
Deuce
Stein
as the
and
secondary
Fisher,
ball handler.
suggesting
If the
the
pitch to
interest
Simmons
is still there.
You'll be our
Here's what
primary
First
facilitator
Take laid
off
out.
the bench.
Both
Then
Steve
maybe
Popper
he
and
sees
Mark
the vision,
Stein
but it
are
would
well
have to be a
established.
clear,
Their reporting
honest
is
pick.
solid.
There are
So
still
it probably
some
comes down to
intriguing
timing.
ideas, though.
The earlier
One
report
lineup
that
came
was
out
floated
when the
during
Knicks
the
were still in
segment
play
really
for
stood
Marcus
out.
Smart.
Towns,
That was the main
Simmons,
focus.
OG,
Once he signed with the
Bridges,
Lakers,
and Brunson.
the Knicks
That's a pretty
pivoted.
dynamic
And
group.
that's likely
You've
when
got
the
your
Simmons
two main
conversation
scorers in
reopened.
Brunson and
It's
Towns.
not that the
While
reports
surrounding
conflict.
them with
It's
three
that the
elite
front
defenders
office's
who all
circumstances
bring
changed.
different things to
So
the
now
table.
it seems
Simmons
like they're
can cover
circling back to
almost
Simmons.
anyone on
and
the
that's
floor.
what worries
OG
some Knicks
can
fans.
slide
Because
back
as
to
it
a
stands,
true wing role.
the signs
My
are
call
pointing
gives
to
you
this
shooting
actually
and
happening.
high-level
It might
perimeter
not be
defense.
what people want.
It's the kind
but
of
based on
switch-heavy,
everything said today
positionless
on
lineup
First Take
that modern
it's starting
coaches
to
love.
feel you wouldn't roll it out for 25
like Simmons
plus
to the
minutes
Knicks
a night could be
but as a
inevitable.
change of
But that's
pace
just
group
the
for
latest
6 to 8
update.
minutes
What
a
do you
game,
think about the
it could do
possibility
real
of the Knicks
damage.
bringing
Still,
in Ben Simmons?
there's no denying
Let us know
Simmons
how you
could
feel
probably
about
get
these
more
developments.
floor time somewhere
Sound
else.
off.
If
That's going to
Boston,
wrap up
a
today's
team that's
breakdown.
reshuffling
If you've
after
been
being
keeping
knocked
up with
out
all
by
the
the
Knicks
Knicks
moves
moves
and
and
rumors,
offers
make
him a
sure
chance
you're
to
locked in
rebuild
right
his
here.
image with
Take care of
consistent
yourselves,
minutes.
your people,
It's understandable
and we'll
if he
catch you
takes
in the
that
next
route.
one.
That wouldn't be a major loss.
We've
for
got
New
a bit
York.
of a plot
Simmons
twist
is
here,
a potential
and it's all
bonus,
centered
not a
around Ben
necessity.
Simmons.
And
Just
let's
a
be
few
real.
days ago,
Whoever ends up
reports
filling
made
that
it
final
pretty clear
14th
that the
roster
Knicks
spot
weren't
for the
pursuing
Knicks.
him.
Multiple
Likely won't
sources said
drastically
it was a
change
long shot. If that player ends up needing to play heavy minutes,
since Simmons
it probably
reportedly
means something went wrong along the way,
like injuries or unexpected
which is
regression.
all New York
Still,
could offer.
if Simmons
that
does
felt
sign
like
with
the
New
end
York,
of the story.
it's news.
But then
It's worth
today on
reacting
First
to.
Take,
And that's
the
what was said
conversation
on
took a
ESPN,
surprising turn.
that if a move
New
happens,
intel surfaced,
it's going to
and
get
now
the full
there's real
attention
buzz
it
again
deserves.
around Simmons.
Knicks fans
Potentially
should be
landing in
watching
New York.
closely.
It seems
Now,
the Knicks
as
may
the
not
show
be out of the
pivoted to
running
another
after all.
topic,
The
here's
focus
how it's all
shifted to
playing
the
out.
big picture.
First,
How
let's
is
rewind.
New York being
Earlier
perceived
in the week,
around the
insiders
league heading
like
into
Steve
the new
Popper
season?
indicated
The
that
Athletic
league
dropped their
executives
latest
believe
power
Simmons
rankings,
to the Knicks
and let's
was
just
highly
say
unlikely.
the Knicks
And the
are
financial
climbing.
backed
According
that
to
up.
the rankings
Simmons is
released
said
this
to be
morning,
looking for
New
more
York
than
sits
the
at
minimum.
number 2.
Ideally,
A
yes,
deal through a
second
team's
best
exception
team in the
and
entire
that's
league.
something the
They were
Knicks
third
simply
in the
don't have
previous
flexibility
version,
for
but now
right
they're
now.
firmly
From a
in the
roster building
legit
perspective,
contender tier.
that
The
seemed
piece
like a
highlighted
closed
new
door.
head coach
At the
Mike
time,
Brown.
it even
and
felt
the
like a relief.
expectations
surrounding what he can do with a group inconsistent availability, injury history, the additions of Clarkson and Yabusele, adding him to an already deep rotation, bench rotation, didn't feel necessary. Players like First Take reported today that the situation may be shifting according to their write-up. According to League could reach another level, but they did multiple lingering questions, including the Suns, especially Celtics, with Brunson Kings, and Towns being key starters. The Knicks. They also mentioned that ideally on Simmons, New York would add another piece or two. Stein specifically named New York defense as one of the franchises showing renewed interest. The Knicks only have one roster spot, and it wasn't just the vet minimum to also referenced reporting from Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports, to make another who reiterated as for the top Sacramento and New York are still in the mix. Oklahoma City even came in at number one with other veteran guard targets like Malcolm Brogdon and Russell Westbrook. New York who can handle the ball. Some outlets have been ranking Cleveland above the Knicks lately, but this one didn't. Now, context matters here. The Athletics gave the Knicks their flowers. Behind them were Minnesota at number 4, and Denver at number 5. Now, if it right after the Knicks missed out on Marcus Smart, those last two. Denver's offseason on the Knicks' radar for a while, and I'd actually moved them above both the Cavs and officials. Many assumed New York would be in play. But it's only July. He signed with the Lakers. Reportedly for a more defined and expanded version of that final segment. That entirely left the Knicks reassessing their options at backup guard. And now, with Smart off the table and limited resources Cavaliers, Simmons might be the most accessible name remaining. How well constructed their roster appears on paper. Here's where the role becomes critical. Kevin Durant feels like the missing that the Knicks aren't looking to bring in a major piece, especially when reflecting on their shortcomings in the ready to contribute. Last year, they clearly lacked a go-to scorer. The idea is to find a veteran who can handle the ball when Jalen Brunson clutch, defend bigger guards, and give them lineup flexibility. The trajectory and that's where Simmons could enter the conversation playoff pedigree. Even though Simmons doesn't offer much in terms of scoring or shooting in the East, he still brings value in areas like the lens and look at rebounding and perimeter landscape. It's striking how many Western Conference teams populate the top 15 ranking. More importantly, that imbalance really underscores just how could make him more appealing to the grabs the Eastern Conference is at the moment. But not everyone agrees like the Indiana Pacers, on first currently hold the 15th spot. It was made clear that Simmons are doing so without their ideal player. His offensive limitations, like Miles' questions about his durability, paints a clear picture of how volatile and uncertain the hierarchy in the East strengthen the back end of your rotation. If there's one team flying under the radar, do you really want this level of uncertainty? It has to be second the Atlanta Hawks. That's the debate. People might not be giving the balls in the Knicks deserve. The front office may see Simmons as a low-risk flyer with a player like Jalen Johnson on the court for a full 82-game campaign. But for many, this team has the potential to surprise a lot of folks. Still out there. The talent is there. They'll see where it goes. They just need consistency and durability. The Knicks' interest in Simmons that could completely transform how they're perceived. If we're talking about veteran guards who could realistically fill that role in the New York Knicks, there's one name that stands out far more than a trip to the NBA Finals would feel like a massive between the two of them. That's not an overreaction. It's the reality of where this franchise stands. They didn't move on from Tom Thibodeau, when healthy, a coach who helped take them to their first Eastern Conference. He's a guy who knows how to manage a second unit just to stall or regress. Hit timely shots and doesn't become a liability when the pressure rises. With Ben Simmons, and if they manage to make it back to the final stage, it's been years since he's played consistent. They need to be ready to win. That's why this window might not stay open for long. That's why no team is willing to offer him a juggernaut beyond Indiana is on the rise. It's the same reason Orlando's young circling back is only going to get better. He reportedly wasn't interested in earlier in free agency, now, like the Knicks. It's become pretty obvious now that Simmons and his camp have realized the finals has to be the baseline mid-level exception. That's the standard. That's just not happening for themselves. So he's looking around the roster, eyeing playoff the talent is undeniable, where he can try to stay wide open. And New York's left to see is whether Mike Brown is the coach. This is a tough take this group to the promised land. Because you know what he brings. If you're ready to see this team return to the finals, this is a player who shrinks when the moment gets big. First Take was crystal clear about this today. Simmons doesn't have the mentality to handle a high-pressure environment. I'm active on Twitter. He's not someone you can trust in tight games. And let's talk. He struggles with basketball. Doesn't shoot. Can't hit free throws. And